feels like it's actually starting to rain a little bit anyways at times. The snow's pretty much gone in most places anyways. And what did I read today? How about this one? Sounds like more news about places wanting to implement rules of sort to take care of drones per se. This one says Congressman Corey Mills introduces legislation to protect State Department facilities from domestic drone threats. As it says here, Congressman Corey Mills has introduced a Department of State Domestic Protection Mission Act legislation that authorizes the State Department to install, maintain, and exercise counter unmanned aerial systems capabilities to protect its domestic facilities and assets from growing drone threats. This bill provides necessary tools for the State Department to protect its domestic facilities from evolving threats, including potential drone attacks, ensuring that our diplomats are secure here at home just as they are abroad. And funny enough, they specifically say here, as the Chinese Communist Party and other adversaries deploy increased surveillance measures, the threat of drone intrusions in American airspace has never been greater. The Department of State Domestic Protection Mission Act will ensure State Department facilities have the capabilities they need to intercept and destroy those threats before they reach Americans. Kind of makes me think of that other story the other day, where some places they want to give authority figures like police officials the ability to shoot down drones as they suspect it's being used by people, let's just say like the cartels and all that. So in general, the bill authorizes the Secretary of State to detect, track, disrupt, seize, or destroy drones deemed a credible threat to covered facilities or assets, and this includes intercepting communications used to control drones, issuing warnings, and using reasonable force if necessary. The authorities apply to the Bureau for Diplomatic Security personnel and contractors tasked with protection duties. And since the Department of State must coordinate actions with the Federal Aviation Administration, Department of Transportation, and National Telecommunications and Information Administration to avoid disrupting airspace safety. And research and testing of counter-drone technologies also require FAA coordination. So are they expecting something, or are they just preparing, I guess, just in case everyone continues to have all this dispute with trades and as well in some places war and all that? And there was more news about that plane crash in the Toronto Pearson airport, where apparently they determined the people that were actually flying inside the plane as well. And I guess one of the controversy is they're saying the pilot didn't actually have, I guess, a lot of real practical experience with that type of aircraft. So apparently for this person, the Kendal Swanson, apparently she was an instructor pilot actually for a small propeller aircraft, but just recently got licensed to co-pilot a small jet. Wow, can you imagine that too? Was that like the quote first day on the job in terms of real experience? Because that's not a good look anyways. Now what was controversial apparently was the company that was flying for Delta was called Endeavor, and a lot of stuff was going online on how in the past or maybe even currently they were really emphasizing how there was a predominantly female crew for this company, and there was various videos like on TikTok where they celebrate the fact that there's no men, for example. So you can imagine during these times there's a lot of debate about people getting positions just because of some kind of characteristic that they have versus, let's just say, the skill and so forth. If that is the case here, I don't know. But the only other thing I was reading as well with this is apparently the crew on the actual plane and the pilot in command, it was a male by the sounds of it, but from what I gather, he was basically allowing her to land it. That's what the claim is anyway. So if that is the case and it was a complete pilot error in that sense because the person wasn't as experienced, who do you blame in that case? The pilot in command that allowed this person to fly, or the person that was actually flying? Which actually makes me curious in this case because I've never flown a plane before, but is it set up in a way kind of like those dual wheel cars where the person on the left or right could actually literally take control of the wheel? Is that the same case in a plane where if something goes wrong then the other person could just take over? Or do you have to literally physically get into that person's seat, for example, to control it? Again, that's a heavy topic nowadays in regards to people getting hired in organizations, especially with the FAA recently in the US on how they claim people weren't being hired based on skill. It's based on other factors like this, for example, that people would say it's based on your sex, or let's just say potentially your race or your actual physical condition. That's kind of crazy to think about if that is the case, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. For the airline themselves, even though there are people planning to sue them, it sounds like anyways, they are offering $30,000 to the crash survivors, as it says here. Well, what would you think? Would that be good enough for you, assuming you survived this plane crash? I guess it would depend on what exactly happened. Is it true, for example, it was a quote pilot error in that sense? And I guess on a lighter note, I was seeing this video being passed online where apparently this drone was stalking the musician Drake, and you can see it looked like when he discovered it, he wanted to throw something at it. But I was just looking at that, I was like, wow, that looks so fake. Especially his reaction. It almost looks like he wanted to throw it, but then it was like, oh no, it's an expensive piece of equipment. It seemed like it had to deal with a gambling site called Stake. I'm guessing it was just some kind of publicity stunt online. That's my guess anyway. But yeah, it looks completely rehearsed. I don't know how people pass this off as real. Are people just that desperate to find, I don't know, some kind of drone negativity, for example, guy being stalked by this and that? I don't know. Either way, I don't think that's real personally when I look at this. Alright, see you guys later.